Good afternoon. My name is Vikas Pota. Welcome to this T4 live stream. As I've been doing over the last so many months, I try to bring on friends who provide topical conversation and actually provide an opportunity for us to learn about various aspects of education. And so today with me, I have, before I tell you who's joining me, I've been thinking a lot regarding the human rights agenda in particular. And I often reflect that obviously it's easy for everyone to say that they support and obviously they back human rights. But when it comes to education, if you look at the stats, the question that comes to my mind is, do we pay lip service to education being a human right? Because there's certainly, as far as I can see, tons and tons and tons of work left to be done, not enough commitment by government and civil society. And I wanted to bring Dean Brooks, who is director of the Interagency Network for Education in Emergencies, to this conversation, because over this pandemic, I've also been worried about the most vulnerable, and those are often in crises or disaster kind of zones where education we should be doing a lot more with regards to educating kids in those situations. So, Dean, welcome to this live stream, and again, I was pleasantly surprised you're in the Honduras as opposed to in New York. So, welcome from Honduras. Tell us a little bit about the work of INEE, which is the Interagency Network for Education in Emergencies.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, because so great to join your show. So the Interagency Network for Education Emergencies is a professional network of educators, practitioners, UN, NGOs, teachers, affected populations in crisis, really working together to provide quality education in emergencies and advocating that education is a right, as you say, education even in emergencies. And really looking at the quality of response. Actually this year we just celebrated our 20th year of existence. INE's always said maybe we won't be needed in the future, and that's our aspiration, but we find more and more that it's needed. And yeah, I'm a longtime educator myself, and used to
teacher.
Yeah, a teacher, and actually came into this work while I was teaching in Congo, Kinshasa, Congo, and I was looking around me at all the needs and thought, I think teaching has prepared me well for working in emergencies. And from there, started working in this sector. And I found INEE years ago when I was working in Guinea, West Africa, and ever since it's been my professional network, the network I would go to for support and information and to really guide the programs I was delivering, and somehow ended up in the job as the director, which is a real honor to be here.
Yeah. So Dean, when I open this conversation, how do you answer this question in terms of, do we just pay lip service to the notion of education as a human right?
That's a really good question. And I think it's, as anything, complicated in terms of the response. I mean, for INE, it is our mission is to support the right to a quality education in emergencies. And, it's in our mission statement, and it's in our minimum standards for education, which is our foundational tool. And it also means, though, that we really reflect on exactly what you're saying, that it's not just lip service, but it actually takes work and action. And the reality is, when we're implementing, we do have to advocate. We do have to go to, the authorities and explain that it is their responsibility to provide education. But we also need to support them. And we also need to think about partnerships. I mean, if you look at the SDGs, for example, it clearly upholds these human rights, and it also admonishes us that we have to work in new partnerships in new ways of working. And that is, a big part of that. So moving beyond lip service means actually really, jumping in and working with the authorities and governments to actually help fulfill that right. In some cases, in contexts where governments are not fulfilling that right, that's where agencies have to step in. They also have a responsibility. And definitely, we have to move beyond just saying it's a human right. It actually takes really a lot of work, a lot of action, a lot of advocacy. Takes everybody involved. Education is all of our responsibility.
So, I mean, that's fine. I understand that, Dean.
Yeah.
In terms of, it's a general statement you make saying that we have to do more.
Yeah.
But how do you maintain your cool when you're sitting across the table from a government that is just flouting, this principle? So yeah. I look at statistics, right? And we were just speaking before this live stream has started, saying that the number. And by the way, congratulations on the study that you have undertaken on your 20th anniversary, and you found that the number of out of school children we've gone backwards on. Do you want to tell everyone that story in terms of the numbers and what it shows?
Say that again.
Do you want to tell everyone what the number is now?
Yeah, and our recent report. Yeah, it's a recent report. You'll find it on our website on the front page, actually. I can put the website here in the chat, I think.
I've got it. I'll flash it up in a second.
Yeah, and what we did was, perhaps you've heard of Education Cannot Wait, a global fund for education emergencies, which has outlined countries where they support and are in need of support for education emergencies. So with UNESCO's Institute of Statistics, we worked with them to actually look at those countries and really unpack the numbers, and came out with more than 127 million children and youth out of school. The number we've been using up until now has been around 75 million. So it's really, as you said, we've gone backwards. And this was before the pandemic, so this was 2019. So really worrying, definitely worrying. But yeah, getting back to your question, good, you've put up our mission statement. I mean, that's really why Ine was created, was to really work on the creation of tools and resources to help organizations, help individuals actually pick up and work towards achieving these goals. Of course, these are aspirational, but this point is that, it's like you said, sitting across the table from an official or government, and they're saying yes, 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 but then it's not happening. That's where these tools and resources really, really come in to support that work, and that's advocacy at every level. That's even sometimes within organizations on why education is so important. But I think, yeah, we have so much more to do to actually see that right realized.
And so the work of INEE, I mean, we obviously know of this mission statement that you have, and you're an advocacy platform and networking organization that tries to devise protocol and ways that people should be thinking about education emergencies. And I saw on your website that you have a few things that you do. So I thought that we should go through them a little bit in terms of, tell us in terms of the successes you've had as an organization. So, you know, I go through, you provide thought leadership and global advocacy. You strengthen capacity to deliver equitable education. You provide, curate, and organize knowledge to inform policy and practice. And obviously, you strengthen and diversify membership of your organization. So tell us a little bit about those things.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we can look at some of the history of INE, which started as a small group of individuals and organizations, and now the network is over 17,000 members. And thought leadership has been there all along. In some ways, it's behind the scenes as well. So back in 2004, when you had the creation of clusters and coordination mechanisms for humanitarian response, you didn't have education. INEE advocated behind the scenes as well as on the scene that education should be included as humanitarian response. Soon thereafter, the education cluster was launched as a recognized sector for humanitarian response. What also supported that work was what we is really our foundational tool called the Ine Minimum Standards. And that's standards for delivery of education emergencies that we consulted with over 2,500 individuals across the world to create these standards. And a way to really think about them are principles of how we implement our work. And the standards were revised in 2010, and we're hoping very soon to start a revision process again. And it's really a blueprint in a way for delivering quality education. That's where thought leadership comes in. Another example I often like to give is INE used to have an advocacy group in its network, and that group was called Education Cannot Wait. That group advocated that there be funding for education in emergencies, and now you have the Education Cannot Wait Fund. We weren't the only ones contributing to that, but it was a key focus for us as a network.
Yeah. And we've recently had Yasmin also on the show.
Good. It's a good friend. Yeah.
Spoken about the work. So how does your work differ to theirs?
So again, we're very much, a way to think about us. And I imagine you have a lot of teachers here on this platform. One way I kind of describe it, especially to educators, is when I was teaching English and I used to teach middle school and primary, I was a member of a language association of teachers who were working on the teaching of English. And so we would have conferences, we would share information, a real community of practice, if you will. And that's what INE has always been for me. It's where I go for professional, support. It's where I go to find guidance. It's where I go, and it's also where I contribute. I've always been a member of the network since I started in this work, in this field of work. And I've always volunteered my time to be a part of it. When INE was working on inclusive education and guidance, I would work in the evenings to review the documents and add feedback. Our members across the globe do this all the time, which is really about the professionalization of our sector. And, this is where, I believe part of the reason that INE has been a success and has made it to 20 years. Many networks don't survive. INE is thriving, and I think it's really because of its members.
And how do you count members in terms of, are they organizations or individuals?
Well, actually, that's very interesting. So INE always has been for individual membership. So I joined it, like I said, when I was sitting in Kisudugu, Guinea, signed up to a listserv, started receiving information and engaging with INE. And I always took that membership wherever I went. Then I went to work for another organization. I was still an INE member. So INE's always had this individual membership process. It's very simple. It's simply an online application. We review that. And, if you subscribe to these principles of education and emergencies and you're a legitimate person, you're a member. And that's really all it takes. We are exploring organizational membership, all these other kind of levels of membership. But I also think that's been really important to INE's success as well, that it's really made up of the individuals who are contributing to the network. And we will, of course, look at these other options. Organizations want to align, and we do, look for those opportunities. But we have some work to do on, how we organize that.
Dean, if I'm a teacher in, say, London, where I'm currently at, and I want to engage with your work, is it a matter of just going to your website and signing up for a newsletter, becoming a member, and then what do I receive as a result of it?
Yeah, so when you do that, you just go to the website, click join. It takes you to the form, and that's where you actually outline what it is you'd like to receive in terms of information. So it does, the network does have this function of information sharing, and you really can choose from all types of information. If your specialty, for example, is inclusive education, you can sign up for newsletters on inclusive education and emergencies. If technology is your interest, or distance education, or research, or early childhood education. So just like in any professional network, for all the various themes within education, and in our case, education emergencies, we have groups and cohorts of members engaged on those topics. Typically, many of our members sign up just for what we call our biweekly bulletin, which is news, information, opportunities around education emergencies every 2 weeks. And of course, our most popular newsletter is the jobs update, which comes out every Friday. I think 8,000 of our members or more sign up for that, just to keep an eye on what's happening in the sector and where vacancies are.
And so, Dean, one of the things that I did recently was host something called World Education Week, where we brought on 100 schools from around the world to come and share their best practice. And actually, what was really pleasing, and you and I have known this for some time, is whilst the world is waking up to trauma being such a big subject as a result of the pandemic, especially in our education systems, there are certain systems that have experienced more trauma than others historically. And so I go back to, for example, St. George's School in Lebanon, where my friend Hiba Balut is the teacher there, and she talked about, for example, how you do peace education, and examples from that context. Or when I used to run the Global Teacher Prize, we selected a Palestinian teacher, who had devised a method of re-engaging kids back into education who were traumatized. And so is the network global in that sense? And how are the learnings of contexts like that used in the developed world, or in high-income countries, as they're now called, around the world? Do you see that happening more and more?
Well, definitely, we've seen that in the past with emergencies or crises in like, for example, what happened in New Orleans and the flooding and all of the hurricanes and people wanting to organize rapid education response and actually reaching out to INE's members to help. And now with the pandemic, we're also seeing this happen. Our work, for example, on psychosocial support, social emotional learning is really expanding, and we have a whole group of our membership really engaged in that. And we have guidance that we're seeing used across the globe. For example, our guidance on psychosocial support, China, the Ministry of Education actually translated that so that they could share that with teachers throughout China due to the pandemic. And we're seeing that, across the board. And that's what's unique about this crisis, is it's affecting all of us. And there's a lot that our sector can really share. And definitely, INE is a platform to really highlight the examples you just shared. So for example, INE has a teachers in crisis contexts network space, we call them, really focused on teachers and support to teachers. Next year, we're really hoping to launch what we call the Year of the Teacher, because that group is really pushing that we highlight the values of teaching, the values of teachers, and really being first-line responders. And so we're definitely planning more work in that area. I mean, one thing to also keep in mind is INE is an open platform. So all of our tools and resources are free and accessible, downloadable. We work in 5 languages, Arabic, Spanish, French, Portuguese, and English, and try to get everything in those languages as best we can. And so, for example, on the teaching topic, we have developed through global consultation, which is how we work, a teaching package which can be used to support teachers who are experiencing an emergency for the first time, and all of that's available on the website. And before the pandemic, you could also write to us and we would send you a hard copy, but right now we can't. but it is all there to download. And if it's something, for example, that a school in Bangladesh, I think we have somebody there from Bangladesh, wants to use, then they just need to write us and we can give them the printing permissions so that they could actually print what they needed. And that's for all of our membership. Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot for your time today, Dean. I was keen to have this conversation with you because we see so many crises around the world, not just because of COVID, but just generally with governments and countries misbehaving. We get a lot of questions from teachers saying, well, what is it that we can do to help? And so the one clear thing that you as a teacher or a school leader can do is go to the INEE website and subscribe to their newsletters and use their toolkits and resources, no matter what context you're in, to educate our kids that this is not good enough and that we can all do something about this. Dean Brooks of INEE, thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to hosting you again at the next opportunity. Thank you for participating.
Thank you. Thank you.